what is really going on? Well, the motivation behind this session is that this has been a really rough year. A lot of organizations, a lot of companies, a lot of global economy, really worldwide, this has been a time of pressure. And as there's been this pressure, a lot of the behavior, day-to-day behavior we see has actually regressed towards a very different way of functioning, a much more traditional way of functioning that actually creates a lot of damage. So what I want to do is kind of talk about that and work through very, very practically, what can you do to make healthy choices? We cannot change the situation we're in. The universe, through its co-creative functioning throughout all of creation, ended up with us being in the situation we're in, where we might have to make some difficult choices. We might have to do things. And so this is the truth of our leadership. The truth of our leadership is not on a sunny day when revenue's great and everything seems fine and so on. The measure of our leadership is what we do in the moment that we're facing challenges. So we're going to go and get through some practical examples. I'm going to set us up a little bit before we do that. But start thinking about what are you experiencing as tight and tough. Just start thinking about that, and we'll complete a poll together a little bit later. So myself, I'm Michael K. Sahota. My background, my passion started out with engineering a long, long time ago. And I moved on to artificial intelligence research. Then I became a developer, architect, technical lead. I moved on to management roles, director development, vice president of R&D. And really after that, I spent most of my time working as a coach, consultant, trainer, and sort of stuff around and beyond Agile that I was working to kind of figure out, what do we need to do to really get people functioning in new ways? Right? And eventually that led to me where I am now, is doing evolutionary leadership as a trainer and consultant, and helping people drop down, not usually where we're operating on the surface, but drop lower and lower down here. What is happening with human beings? What is happening with our relationships with others? What are we doing on a daily basis that can make things better, make things worse? That's really what we're going to talk about here, and use that as some elements of that as an applied lens to understand, what do we do? What are the unhealthy choices we can make when times are tough? And what are the healthy ones? So I've written 3 books. One of them I wrote on my own. 2 of them I co-authored. An Agile Adoption and Transformation Survival Guide. This is in 2012. Working with organizational culture. So this really is about how to understand leadership, culture, and change at a very deep level. Emotional science, which we need to know, especially when things are tight, because when we start to have our fear response activated, we're not really going to be able to help anyone else, because we're under psychological fear, and the blood supply is not getting to our frontal cortex. So this is very important. We're not going to go into this today. We're going to focus on some much easier practical things. We're really going to draw from our book, Leading Beyond Change. And what this book does is it gives us patterns. What are the anti-patterns of traditional leadership that actually make us less successful? And what are the healthy patterns that we can use to really create the outcomes that we're hoping for? So we're going to, really the core of our work is really about this evolution roadmap. And we've been working at this for such a long time, myself coming from an engineering and analytical perspective, and my business partner and wife, Audrey, coming from a deep understanding of human beings at a psychological level as well as an energetic level. And so together we built this map, which is really the roadmap of how do we move from traditional organizations to evolutionary ones. I'm not going to go through all the details right now. There's a lot. We're going to cover some of the essence of it. So really, I think the next point I want you to understand is that reality is fractal in nature. Whether we're talking about people, teams, departments, organizations, these are just levels of a fractal that grows up and down. So this map of evolution applies at all levels. Unless we understand the evolution of people, we don't really understand the evolution of our teams. So we're in this worldwide phenomenon of moving from traditional organizations, which we can characterize as following traditional patterns of functioning, mixed levels of engagement, untapped performance, limited adaptability, often like stagnation. People attempt to change, but nothing really changes. So the alternative to this, and this is, some organizations are either there or well on their way there towards evolutionary organizations, which follow evolutionary patterns, where there are high levels of engagement, high performance, high adaptability, and continuous innovation. Now, when I say evolutionary patterns, really what I'm talking about is following natural law, the laws of cause and effect. When I treat people this way, it doesn't work out so well. When I treat people this way, oh wow, it works out a lot better. So we're going to go through and really understand this roadmap and some key elements of it. So before we go into a few more details about the roadmap and those elements that we're going to use and apply for this, answering this and dealing with this issue, I want to go to having you answer, how is your organization experience tight and tough? And I'm going to put the URL back in the chat here. See if this works. Let's not do it how I want it to. Let's go here. So let's start here. pollev.com/orgs. So we're looking to co-create this list of, how is your organization experiencing tight and tough? Like, what is happening? And the intention here is that we'll build out like the core of this webinar based on addressing the actual specific things that you're experiencing, and talk about what's the traditional patterns that get followed, what are the evolutionary ones, and how do those create different outcomes. Looks like people are writing, but I haven't seen anything on my screen yet. Two possibilities. One is that the poll's not working. The other possibility is that it's not displaying. Oh, here we go. All right, great. So I start to see some answers coming in here. What I'd like you to do is upvote other people's answers. Upvote up other people's answers. And some of these might need more clarification. Like, I saw one about culture changes, because your culture is changing in a good way and you don't know how to handle it, versus, there's been culture deterioration and there's a specific challenge around that. Yeah, the more specific we get would be helpful. I've seen leaders shift more to control again. Yeah, so a shift of leadership towards command and control. We'll talk about that and what to do with that. Chaos and overwhelm. When we get to that one, I'll probably ask for a bit more details. Decreasing revenue, increasing costs, defensiveness, staff leaving, I see, market pressures. So just take another few moments to scroll through this list, upload all the ones that you are experiencing in your environment. Okay, great. We'll give you another 10 seconds or so to complete, and we'll come back to this later on to start going and addressing these one by one. Okay, great. Let's continue. So we're going to talk now about delivering scalable success for people. Like, is that even possible? What does that mean? How does that relate to these challenges we're facing? Because depending on how we understand reality, we're going to respond to these challenges very, very different ways, with very, very different understandings. Whoops. All right, there we go. Okay. So most of what we're talking about is delivering scalable success to people. It's understanding that all results come through people. So whenever there's something going on that we need to respond to, we want to understand, well, what's happening to people? How does this choice impact the people? So we're giving the practical how-to of move your organization from tradition to evolutionary, or at least when things are going wrong, when it's tight and tough, we don't propagate the mistakes of the environment to make things worse and actually harm our organization and where it is. Now, the fact that you're experiencing a lot of tight and tough, especially with leadership and so on, what it's telling you is that your organization doesn't know to help make healthy moves when things are challenging. That's what you're experiencing. That's really a clarification of what's going on. So we're going to talk about how to make those healthy moves when things are challenging. Go through some of the examples that you raised here. What we see as the core driver of value is people. Right? So if we understand that value creation comes through people, then we can start to understand, well, that a culture of engagement is essential, which means that we want to be constantly evolving psychological safety, because then people get more blood supply to their frontal cortex, they'll perform better, and we'll be able to establish a continuous learning culture so we know what to do to create success. And ultimately, as leaders, we're the ones creating the culture, the performance. That's really just a reflection of our leadership. So if our performance is going down, if we're creating a situation where people become demoralized, we're the ones actually creating that. It's not like anyone said we have to do that, but often we don't know what to do in place. So we're going to go through each one of these very briefly. The first one that I want to go through is the virtuous cycle for business. Virtuous cycle for business. So what this says is that there is a very strong connection between the revenue your company generates that's needed to support your employees, which is needed to look after your customers, which, when your customers are looked after, supports the finances, the virtuous cycle. And so when we understand the cycle, we know the most important thing, the thing we actually have most control over is our employees, making sure they have a great, some people start calling this employee experience. Some people even understand that this is a whole domain of how do we understand as managers, as leaders, how to look after employees. That lets us look after the customers to create great experiences for them so we actually have the revenue. So this is using the virtuous cycle in reverse. So we want to start here. That's the healthy thing. Now, what happens in a traditional business is we run it backwards. So just notice, is your organization starting to run this in backwards? We cut the costs by telling the employees they have left time, maybe getting rid of employees, and it's starting to impact the customer experience, and then it's actually running this cycle in reverse. So just raise your hand on the screen if you're noticing your company right now is operating the cycle in reverse. It's trying to pressure people to deliver faster. I see some hands going up. Yes, okay. So that's a great example of a traditional organization, that organizations are starting to operate this in reverse. The virtuous cycle is a natural law. This is just how to move towards a healthier functioning organization that's more profitable and so on. The other one is culture of engagement, that really we want people to move away from this idea and model of theory X, where they're avoiding responsibility, they're unambitious, unmotivated, to where they're more theory Y, where they're seeking responsibility, they're self-directed, they're motivated. Now, if you think about the performance of your company, results come through people. So this is almost the only factor that matters in the performance of your organization. This is like the single most important, because results come through people. So we get another key factor with people that determines performance is psychological safety spectrum, that we're on worldwide, individually, person by person, moving from a place of low psychological safety, high levels of fear and stress and worry and so on, towards enjoyable safety and trust. And that's our job as stewards of the organization, to create that space for our people so they can function. The next aspect is continuous learning culture. Most organizations are in this operating very traditional in the death trap of focusing only on production, only on the now. What do we get done now? What do we get done now? We need to make some improvements because things aren't working well. We don't have time for that. Other organizations focus on production capability, making things better, making that group, that team more productive and effective. This is about focusing on the future. Now, it turns out both of these are around shareholder value. Both of these. Production is shareholder value now. Production capability is shareholder value in the future. So we're not even arguing about shareholder value. We're just saying, look, if you really are doing a good job as a leader, you're focusing on both. But the challenge is it's versus. In a traditional mindset, we think we have to do things for now, or we can do things in the future, right? And it's this competition. That's a traditional mindset. It's that these are versus. And there's some truth in this. Like if your time frame of optimization is a day or a week, then they're probably in versus, right? If you're working towards a really important deadline that determines the fate of your company, then you probably want to put all your effort into production. But most organizations plan on a quarterly or yearly basis. And when you're looking at a quarter or yearly basis, it becomes an and. And from it, when you start to move to an evolved mindset, you understand, oh, it is an and. Any investments we put into production capability, we'll get them back. We'll get that and back and more within our planning horizon. It's like fixing all the daily problems that people are experiencing that's actually making them more disengaged and more frustrated and so on. When we give people space and time to start addressing what they need to do today to be more productive for the rest of the quarter, we're way on our journey towards building a continuous learning culture, which not just increases staff, but actually directly is linked towards our ability to produce. So the final dimension I'll mention is, this is a map we've created called the evolution of high performance, is that results, business agility, the ability to thrive in a VUCA world fully depends on engaged workers, working in new ways of working, adaptable, and so on. And the way employees are functioning is fully a reflection of our organizational environment and culture. Unless our organizational environment and culture sustain people, we're not really going to be able to keep up with the challenges of the world. And then if we go even deeper, one more level deep, well, who's creating the organizational environment and the culture? It's the leaders. The leaders are creating the environment through their daily decisions. And every leader is actually leading by example. That they're setting the example and establishing the culture of your organizations. So these different factors are the factors that we're going to look at primarily as we start to go through, well, what do we do when times are tight and tough? And what's the traditional response? And what's an evolutionary one based on natural law? So that's what it really evolutionary leadership is. It's about how do we, in our current situation, make healthier choices that move us more towards an evolved way of functioning that gives us actually the success that we're looking for? And what are the traps we might fall into so that we can be aware of them and not go into those traps, but instead try something different, make a different move, a healthier move. So I want to ask you this. Where's your organization from 1 to 10? Where's your organization from 1 to 10? If you think about your organization right now, the way it's functioning, where would you say it is on this journey? Where would you say it is on the journey? 1 is very, very traditional. 10's way over here on the evolutionary side. And so I'm going to put the polling URL in the chat again. It's the same like the last time. We'll give people a moment. Again, 1 is very traditional. 10 is over here on the top of the evolutionary side. And the question is, where is your organization right now when you evaluate the way it's functioning now? Okay, so we're seeing answers between 1 and 8. Seems the most common answers are between 3 and 7, with the biggest peak at around 5. So if we look at the average of the whole group, it's probably somewhere about a 5. So when you look at a graph like this, what does it tell you? It tells you, hey, this is normal. We're all on our journey. We are all on our journey of evolving organization towards kind of the most evolved, the most productive organization we can be in. So with that, that's why this evolutionary leadership, the self-framework, is really valuable, because no matter where you're on the journey, it tells you, well, hey, we're going to do less of this and more of this. So it's a very clear rubric, a very clear way to understand how to make this journey no matter what circumstances we're in. So that's where we're going to go next. Oh yeah, so that's what I want to say next, is that when we use the traditional patterns, these are actually life diminishing. It actually diminishes how people are functioning, diminishes the organization. When we use evolutionary patterns, these are life enabling, right? So it's kind of like, this is where natural law comes in very, very clear, because depending on how we are making a choice, either life diminishing or life enabling, we are the ones creating the future. And we have the possibility and power to create very different outcomes. So, what do we do when times are tight and tough? Let's go through this now. I'm going to start going through some very practical examples based on the data you gave. Okay. So what I want to do is open up the audio, and then I'm going to get some more details. So we're going to go through these one at a time. I've seen leaders shift to more control again. So first I'm going to explain what's happening. So why would leaders switch towards more control again? They were a good leader, maybe an okay leader before. Now they're turning into a very traditional leader. And the news headline of why this is happening, I'm not giving this justification, I'm just explaining the actual practical reason. So what's going on for them is that they're hitting a disturbance and they don't know how to handle it. So most people on this planet are not really trained how their emotions work. So there's some sort of challenge they're facing and they go into fear. And they don't understand the fears impacting them. So essentially what's happening is their functional level, let's say it's here, has dropped to here, or maybe even here. And they start moving towards these traditional patterns because either they can't cope up with the complexity, or their emotional system is taking them out and reducing they're creating fear, which means the blood supply of their frontal cortex is not operating. So they can't even use their full knowledge, their full intelligence. So that's why leaders are shifting more towards control. That's why we say your culture really is what happens on a bad day. What happens when people are under stress, not when it's a good day. So let's open up the audio here and say, well, what is your challenge? So I get that, but what is your challenge with leaders shifting to more control? And I'd like you to just shout out, what's your challenge? Oh, I think you have to hit unmute and share.
So, hi, Michael. It's Tanya Colvin here. So, on that one, my challenge personally would be, I just feel like I'm kind of stuck in concrete and can't move at all, because before, when I felt like maybe I was more trusted to do my job, I am not so trusted to do that anymore, because I have to have approval for every little thing and kind of have to run everything by someone, which I didn't really have to do before. So that's my personal challenge.
Great, thank you. Someone else want to share what this means for them? So on this, leaders are becoming more command and control. What's your challenge around this? Someone might be speaking, and maybe Richard's speaking, but you have to unmute. Anyway, but Louisa, why don't you go next?
Yes. I think that about the same information that our colleague transmitted. So obviously before having all this experience, 20-something years in agile world and all that, I would go in and set up the governance for the project, do everything, whatever was necessary. enjoy the workload, working together, collaborating, and all that. Nowadays, nobody will trust you, and you have to really go to some, I would say, middle level manager just to tell them I would like to do that, but they will reply, I don't have time. No. You know. So it's actually you are no longer able to do the proper job.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, this is Richard in Tauranga. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I got some problem with the whole trust factor as well, particularly getting sign-off on professional development courses for upskilling and continuous learning. Whereas previously that was quite easy to get sign-off from the executive management. I'm finding I'm now needing to write long justifications and produce long justifications for that, and then still not getting sign-off. So continuous learning and investment in people is just a huge challenge.
Great. Thank you. Would someone else like to share?
You're Michael. Cormac here, down in Wellington. How are you?
Very good.
I'm going to come at it from a slightly different angle. I am in one of those positions where you're leading a large group of people, and I hear concerns being raised around the command and control piece. My view on it, maybe going slightly off tangent, is helping people understand the constraints we're working in at the minute, and it's not going to last forever. So I think there's always that perception when we need to write more justifications, or we need to explain ourselves a bit more where we've had the freedom. I find it's nothing to do with the people. It's more to do with what the constraints we're working under, and it's a temporary measure. And it's almost like a bit of a reset. I would say that we're almost experiencing is let's take a step back, let's figure out where we are, and then allow us to move forward. So, for example, if we're reviewing contracts or something, sorry, I'm rambling on a wee bit here.
No, it's perfect.
It took me about two or three goes to realise that when I had to put things up to management, they were coming back to me with questions. So looking at what they were asking for, and I put that in responses. So I basically short-circuited the whole process with them. And then we were getting the approvals through a lot quicker. So I think it's for me it's a bit of a reset, and there is more command and control. And I don't think it's a permanent thing. And it's not about people's trusting people. It's just really looking at this is where we're at. This is where we need to go to.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, that's great insight. Okay, so let's dive in. Let's dive in. So let's look at a traditional response to this situation. So these are kind of like the traps that we fall into. The first one is blame. We blame others, like those people, they are doing this. Any language like that we're experiencing the situation in is a form of blame, right? Traditional response to this is demotivated. We become demotivated. I don't know what to do. Essentially what's happening is the VUCA world has shown up in our face in a big way, and we're like, what do I do now? Right? It's okay. I'm not judging. I'm saying this is like, no matter what the situation is, when we go to those are very traditional responses. The other thing we do is we fall back into traditional responses, right? So what's our traditional response to authority? We feel undervalued. We have this not trusted is actually our emotional response. When we feel not trusted, that is our emotional evaluation. I will repeat. When we feel not trusted, that's our emotional feeling of I am no longer trusted. Like, what do you think happened? Like, you're trusted exactly the same you were before. It's not like people are under, moved to a fear state, but that's part of it. It's not only that you're responding that way to that, but there's actually And I think this is where we're going. Actually, I'll pop over the evolutionary side. When you understand evolutionary responses, we start to look at the situation. We understand, well, there's been a drop in safety for the leaders. Right? This was an activation of their fight or flight system. So what we can infer from that is they're under some sort of pressure. Furthermore, if we take an evolutionary response, we can say, look, there's a drop in transparency. Back to the last share we had is that there's unclear change in the constraints. Like the way your organization is functioning has shifted. It's shifted from wherever it was over here. It went, whoop, we're over here now. The ground rules of what we do on a normal day and the way we function and make decisions has gone through a radical shift. And you probably didn't have a meeting where someone told you that. I mean, raise your hand. For those on camera, raise your hand. If there was a meeting where we said, hey, everything's changed here. We are now functioning in this completely new way. We're becoming much more conservative in decisions, and that and giving you full transparency. This is the amount of budget we have for training in the past. This is what we're doing in the future. Here's how to get things approved. This is how things... Yeah, no one has their hand up. Right? So we just go, oh, there's a lack of transparency of what the rules of the game are. And we go, oh, I don't know what the rules are. I used to know the rules, and I don't know the new rules. Oh, it's a game. I get to play a game of discovery. Woohoo! I get to play the game of discovery. What is going on? Ha ha! This is going to be a fun day because I want to get this course approved, this training approved, and I have no idea what will get them to say yes. So let me go ask them that question. Is there any point? I'll use Richard's example. He wants to get training approved, right? So is there any point having a conversation about a possible training program, or is there zero funding available? I just want to know before I figure out whether I'm going to even explore this with us right now. And I don't have transparency of the finances or what budget we have for training and so on. So is it even worth having that conversation? And your manager goes, yes. And you say, great. What rubric are we using to decide if we're going to approve training? Like, is there like a maximum above which won't be allowed? I imagine things are on a case-by-case basis. Like, what are the factors that you're using, and what is the information you need to get a training approved? And who are you able to decide? Who actually is involved in the decision? And is this even something you should bother doing? Like, I mean, what are the chances of anything actually getting approved? And we're just really on. But we take the answer and say, okay, great. Thank you for the new rules. And then you say, great. And then you know what to do. You're not, chasing squirrels. You're not doing anything. That's when we're over here on the evolutionary response side. Back to the other side, we're going like, well, if we really honest, when we have a traditional response, we go, I don't know. I don't know what to do here. And I'm stuck. Right? When we do that, we're the ones. This is where it starts to be really clear. We start to usually when this sort of thing happens, we move to theory X and we don't even recognize it. We don't take responsibility for it. That's why I say this is the traditional side. In contrast, on the evolutionary side, we go, I don't know what to do. It's the same truth, right? We don't have the information. I don't know what to do. And we go back up here. Curiosity, discovery. Let me go find out. I wonder what's going to work, how this is going to work right now. This was easy in the past, but it's hard now. Okay, well, what's going on? Like, what's actually going on behind things? If you want your outcome, this is how to get your outcome if it's possible. Might be, might not be. On a traditional perspective, when we operate in a traditional way, we demand our outcome. We're attached to our outcome. We fight for our outcome. Let's move to an evolutionary response where just open. Like maybe what we want to do doesn't fit the current climate and what's possible from a funding perspective with an organization. And then we look at this need to get more approval. So we go, oh, in an evolutionary mode, somebody wants more approval. Wow, I totally get that. Their safety levels dropped. They're not even telling what's going on, which means they're in a deep state of fear. So of course they're going to be wanting to get more involved in things because that's the traditional pattern that they know. So we just give more information. It's not a big deal. It's really not a big deal. Like if something's important enough to get done, we just need to give more information. It's like we're paying more tax rates. Like your tax rate to operate in your organization might have been 20% or 10% before, and it just went up to 30 or 40%. Oops. But you're still there. Your requirement to show up, you're taking the company's pay to show up theory Y. Seeking responsibility, self-directed, staying motivated. That's your responsibility. And so this is the tragedy. Our traditional response is that we often move towards theory X. Sorry, you can't see when I don't switch this. If it ever seems like I'm drawing and saying something but you can't see, it means I forgot to switch back to the iPad. All right. And really, the evolutionary response is to show up theory Y. It's really not very complex. It's really, really not very complex. The only thing that really gets in our way is we don't know how to function. We've been really taken out by the VUCA world. That's what this is over here. It's VUCA wins. And over here in the evolutionary world, it's we all win. We win, our company wins, our customers win, we all win. That's what we're speaking about here. So why on earth are we talking something so weird called evolutionary leadership? I'm trying to find the slide. Hold on. Oops. Why are we talking about evolutionary leadership? Because evolutionary leadership says if you're getting taken out by the world you're in, that means you don't have the skills to function. You do not know how to function in an evolved way to navigate those skills. That's what it tells you. So if you're doing anything on this side, it says, oh, there's a skills gap. There's an awareness gap. We're starting to bridge some of that here. But there's so much more to this framework. It's really about how to evolve in a functional way, no matter what's happening. That's why one of the models we teach about is how to lead no matter what. How to lead no matter what's going on. Whether your market's collapsed or, your company has to drop its cut 50% of its costs and has to go to something dramatic. It's not about what you do, it's how you do it. The outcome may not change of we need to achieve something or, we have to do something to have our business run. But how do we do that? Do we do it in a way that involves people? Or do we do it another way? Okay, I'm looking at time here and I'm realizing I might not be doing a great job balancing out all the different backlog items that we have. So let's see if this comes up. I want to go to the next one. Decreasing revenue, increasing costs, defensiveness. Back to command and control. We already addressed that one. It turned out it was the same as leaders moving back to command and control again. Defensiveness. Oh, staff leaving. Staff leaving, that's an easy one. This is what people are experiencing. And when they experience it, they become more theory X. When they're theory X, they don't enjoy coming to work anymore. So the next step after that is, the person in here. I quit. Right? And nobody quits their company, they quit their boss. So I quit my boss who's doing all this stuff, who's had a lower level of safety, who's no longer transparent about what's happening, where I have to do more work to make things happen, and I don't know how to do it, right? Because, VUCA's winning, so I don't know how to lead no matter what. I don't know how to show up no matter what, so I quit. Okay, fair enough. I mean, we're not disputing that quitting, of anyone quitting. what we always say is, look, if your leadership is at, let's say, level 5 and your environment's level 5, it means you can function in that environment. If now you're facing the boss level of the game and the challenge is level 10 and you're still level 5, you're going to get your ass whooped. So either you level up so you know how to function, or you get a new game, something that's level 5 or easier, or somewhere within your challenge rating, right? So it's not the environment's problem, it's your problem. That's what evolutionary leadership takes us to, is how to take responsibility and level up like crazy. That's why it's called evolutionary leadership. It's about us evolving ourselves so our level goes up so we can handle bigger and bigger challenges. Otherwise, we're falling into the traditional trap. All right, is another one I can easily address? I'm just noticing time, and I want to open for questions. What are we seeing here? Decreasing revenue, increasing costs. Okay, so I want to do one more really quickly. I don't know how effectively I'll be able to do this, but let's try. Apparently, I'm taking way too long for these. Okay, so this is. Wait, which one was it? I had a plan. Yeah, so defensiveness is, again, because they're in fear, so they become more defensive. It's just very natural. We're part of that whole pattern that we talked about before. What's going on? So I'm going to talk about decreasing revenue, increasing costs. So let's do that one. Okay, so I'm going to go through a made-up scenario. Let's say your revenue is 100 and your costs are 120. Thousands, millions, whatever, doesn't matter, right? So costs are 120 and revenue 100. Okay, so because of the virtuous cycle, we go, hey, we've got a problem here. If we don't have the money to look after our employees to create the products, we've got a problem. And in the short run, we would try to get better at sales. There are longer things to do. But let's say this month, we do not have the money to do payroll for everyone. What do we do? Well, in a traditional world, the leaders would, here are the leaders. The leaders will decide 99 times out of 100, they'll decide to eliminate staff. They will decide on the plan based on incomplete information. They're going to lose critical people that they actually need, that they should not have laid off. So then they'll need to rehire selectively. Like sometimes they do this and they get rid of and early retire people that they actually need to cross-train others. Otherwise, they don't know how to do their deliver on their services. So they actually have to rehire selectively because they actually didn't involve the right people in making a good decision. And they create a whole big whopping set of Theory X of the survivors. And this is because of the way it was done and handled and so on and so on. Now, you still, over the evolutionary side, you still need to cut costs, but you engage the people. Here are all the people. Turns out the collective intelligence is greater than the individual intelligence. So all the people in your organization working together to solve the challenge together is going to give you a best solution. So you bring the people together, you're transparent. Hey everyone, these are our costs, these are our expenses, and you say, what are your ideas? And you have a workshop in person, online, what are your ideas? And you generate a whole bunch of different ideas. Let's draw them as these green squares. And say, great, let's figure out, what does this one mean? What does this one mean? What does this one mean? And you actually get like not a completely detailed, but a high level answer. And you ask the people, okay, well, this one's going to save us, 5 points. This one's going to save us 3. This one's going to save us 18. Oh, this one can go scalable between really 0 to, 20. I mean, we could just do this one if we did more of it. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, you with me so far? And then you work with staff to pick, we're going to do this one, and this one. Great. Let's say staff picks a couple things, like they go, oh, we want to go to reduced work hours. We're going to go to 4 hours per week instead of 5 hours and save the 20% right there. Done. And everybody loves it. And you do that. And now you just gotten a boatload more theory why. Or it could be, it's like, hey, some people put their hand up and say, I'd like a package now. Could I be just packaged out so there's no ongoing cost for me? Sure, we'll package you out. No problem. I'm willing to go. We have some people who need to leave. Let's have some volunteers. And if you're actually critically needed, you won't be able to go through this program because we're going to ask the people around you, is it safe for you to leave the organization right now? But the whole point is the answer that is correct for your organization is the answer that's correct for your organization right now. And nobody knows that. I don't know that. The CEO doesn't know that. Anybody who claims they know the right answer for your organization to find an optimal path through the challenge it's in is a liar. There's no right answer. What we're looking for is somebody who knows how to use evolutionary patterns to tap into the collective intelligence system to find the best option possible. Okay. So, where are we? I'm lost. Okay, so just to close very quickly. So everything I'm sharing with you is how to deliver scalable success through people. It's not about the situation, it's how we respond. So what we've given you is an evolution roadmap. A lot of these patterns, a lot of this intelligence is in our book, Leading Beyond Change. And the self-framework that we've developed is the practical how to navigate this roadmap, how to make a shift on all levels of this framework. And here's a book from one of our graduates who actually lives in Auckland. And he's realized that this book, because it goes through 40 of these patterns, traditional to evolutionary, he's just put all these tabs in here because it's his daily, like what he has on his desk when he's doing work, because it guides him through avoiding these traditional traps. So again, we're just taking you through traditional patterns and evolutionary patterns to be more successful. So that will open it up for Q&A. And if you have a question, you're welcome to unmute. And thank you for your time. Questions? Challenges? I could go for another hour. This is actually a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I love this question.
For me, Michael, I think it's, as I mentioned earlier, I'm in that leadership role. I find, there's times you do need to do the command and control, and you can't explain everything to the staff. But it was good reflection on how people would be feeling as well in terms of that side. So taking that into consideration, helping them through the rules, not just from the direct reports, but even through some peers and people in the business. Especially within government and the constraints we're not working under as well. There's some hard decisions we need to make, and it's never going to be the best decisions. It's going to be the best over a lot of bad decisions, or difficult decisions, shall we say. Not bad decisions, but it's just keeping in mind how people are probably feeling as well. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Other reflections or questions?
Coming from me, off the back of what Colin was saying there, I don't think it's fair to call it command and control when that happens, because that's not in the traditional sense of command and control from a leadership
hard decisions at times, especially when times are tough. And I think it's important for leaders to make their teams understand that actually, you have choices as an individual operating in an organisation, but also some of these decisions have to be made, because there are things that have to happen. Right?
Yeah.
It's not we are telling you what to do kind of scenarios.
Yeah.
It's,
Thank you. We actually teach in our level 1 training why that your statement is false, very provably, and exactly what to do and exactly how to handle it. The truth is, command and control behavior is generally toxic and damaging. Like, they're very, very rare situations where, for complex, important decisions, you don't want to be involved in the collective and intelligence of your team. So the fact command and control behavior is toxic and damaging doesn't change the fact that you might not be unable to get out of it. Either you don't have the skills, or you're legislated that you are not allowed to involve people in the decision-making process. Very few organizations have I seen where they have actually been told it is illegal for you to actually involve people in decision-making. Usually this is just a command from your boss that you can follow or not follow, or selectively follow, or follow generally, but actually serve the higher goal. It's a very detailed topic to go into. How do we survive our command and control bosses? How do we show up as leaders to create our own culture bubble and way of functioning and the best outcomes independent of the command and control behavior us? But really, when we say I can't get out of command and control behavior, generally most of what we've seen and again, we train thousands of leaders around the globe, that's mostly us victimizing ourselves and kind of giving ourselves an out. The truth is, I'm going to have to do command and control now. It's not a good decision. I'm going to cause damage, and I don't know how to do anything different. That might be a more humble leadership position, because I think it is possible. So I'm just going to challenge that.
Thanks for the session, Michael. And it's just sort of a reminder to me that it just takes courage to keep showing up every day. As a leader, it takes courage to just show up, and it's actually quite simple what you were outlining between X and Y. It just takes courage to show up as a leader in Y, not X. So I think it's a more wind in our sails to keep going. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you for that. That's my pleasure. And just to really clarify, when we look at the psychological safety spectrum, and again, there's so much confusion around what this is, how it works, and so on. And even a lot of the stuff that people allegedly learn about is actually kind of damaging. But courage is not what's required. Courage is what happens when I say I have fear and I'm gonna get myself over here. It's kind of like battling the fear, right? That's actually a health. I mean, I don't know if it's a healthy step. If we have no way of addressing the fear, that at least moves us to a little bit. Brave means we're operating slightly higher on the spectrum, but the fear is still there. That's what brave means. I'm going to operate and kind of pull myself together and operate in a less fearful state, a courageous state, but the fear is still there. The more evolved pattern of what we're saying here is that we really need to understand emotional science or anything like that to actually get rid of the fear itself. So we jump not just to here through courage, but over here, right? That's actually the solution. Courage is not a solution. It's a adaptation and countermeasure. And if you don't, and I don't know, $20. If the only thing stopping you from learning how to navigate your emotions is you, because the technology is there. So if you're ready to go beyond courage and actually let go of the fear, it's totally possible. The technology is here on planet Earth. Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah. Okay. Would anyone else like to ask a question before we close?
Yeah, Michael, hey, Cam Chapman here. I'm actually dialing in from Brisbane, so thank you for your session. Interesting reflecting on your words, and particularly in a leadership position where you're in a cohort, and instead of leading in a sort of a vertical manner, you're actually part of a cohort that's leading horizontally. Interesting that your models and what you're talking about basically applies both that way as well as leading people, actually working as part of a team in a leadership team, managing competing agendas, managing competing ideologies. It's an interesting exercise. So thank you for your session.
My pleasure. Thank you. All right. So everyone, we're going to close now. I just want to thank you for your time and your attention. And if you want to stay connected with us, feel free to join our newsletter that's on our website, shift314.com, or join our community, online community. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. It's been a pleasure joining you. And thank you to Equinox for hosting this webinar.